Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is Dynamics 365 Project Operations Demonstration. My name is Cora, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. The session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions in chat during the presentation, and there may be some time for Q&A segment near the end. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Satish Panwar, Senior Program Manager, and Martin Walker, Senior Solutions Architect. Satish and Martin, over to you to kick us off today.
Thank you, Cora, for the introduction. And thank you very much to everyone in attendance today. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this Tech Talk and provide you with demonstration of high-level end-to-end business process flows in resource non-stop deployment and Dynamics 365 project operations. I also have Martin Walker here with me today, who will be co-presenting today and will cover multiple demonstrations during this Tech Talk. Before we get started, I want to share with you our Dynamics 365 implementation guide, which contains a wealth of information gained from our collective experience across thousands of Dynamics implementations. Download it today from aka.ms/D365 implementation guide for detailed insight into how your implementations can incorporate success by design. Objectives of today's Tech Talk is to provide a higher level end-to-end business process flows and demonstration within the application for the resource and non-stop deployment. What this Tech Talk does not cover is how to configure project operations, complex business processes, stock or production-based deployment, and technical details. From an agenda perspective, we'll start with high-level architecture, quick flow, and then demonstration. In the end, we have also covered a lot of resources that you can leverage to boost up your knowledge for project operations. From our other Tech Talk project operations deployment options and scenarios, you will be aware that there are different deployment types of project operations. In this Tech Talk, we will be demonstrating a high-level end-to-end process flow using the resource non-stop integrated deployment type. And what that means basically is that we'll be using the app on the customer engagement side as well as on the finance side. This is a high-level picture of how project operations enable lead to cash and record to report level 0 business processes. In the rest of the talk, we will take a straightforward path through most of this. We will not try to dive into many possible variations in how you might execute these processes, since our goal is to provide a foundational understanding of how project operations is intended to work end-to-end. We are planning further Tech Talks, which will drill into more detailed configuration, operation, and outcome for the components illustrated in this flow. Now, over to Martin for the demonstrations.
Thanks, Satish. Let me just share my screen quickly. All right, the format for the rest of the talk is a series of segments where I'll highlight which part of this end-to-end process flow I'm going to walk through and then show you that in the system. Without further ado, we will start at the beginning with the lead to opportunity to project service quotation process we might expect a sales persona to follow. And you will see that highlighted on the diagram. All right, so to the demo. All right, so here we are showing the customer engagement app. And we currently have our customers tab open. As you can see on the left-hand side here, you have your different areas. So we're starting off in the sales area, and we are going to select leads. All right, as you can see, I don't currently have any open leads, so I'm going to create one. All right, the topic will be demo 1 lead. And the type will be work-based. And I'm gonna make up a name for the for the lead contact. So demo 1 first, demo 1 last, and let me just say this. The company is Contosa Robotics USA, and the account name, assuming we don't have a customer for this already, the account name we will eventually end up with will be our demo 1 customer, assuming we win this. So we can go ahead and save it. All right, so we have our lead, and now we can look at our process flow along the top. So we're going to start. You can see you got your qualify button. You don't have to fill this stuff out. In fact, I'm going to say, if there was an existing account, or I'm going to say there's a purchase time frame is going to be this quarter. I'm going to provide an estimated budget of $250,000. Yep, seems right. The purchase process is going to be by committee. We've identified our decision maker. And we're going to put in a summary, demo 1 project lead. I'm going to save this. All right, so now we have a complete lead. And as you can see, we've got the information filled out in our first stage. And now we want to move to the second stage of this. Now, how we do this is we click on the qualify button. And what this will do is it will use this lead to create an opportunity for us and open it for us. So let's let it do that. All right, as you can see, we successfully qualified the lead. And we are now on the, you can see it's automatically moved us to the opportunity screen. If we went back to the leads, we would see that one is now no longer active because we're working it as an opportunity. All right, so again, we've got our lead open. And let's look at the development. Let's click on the development stage of the flow. So let's say our customer need is for a digital transformation, something suitably generic. And the proposed solution naturally is going to be to implement project operations. And we're going to say we've identified our stakeholders and we've identified our competitors. Okay. And then we move on to our opportunity lines tab. So we've figured out our basic information, we move on to opportunity lines, and we add a new opportunity line here. All right, so we're going to call this, I'm going to give this one a name, and it's going to be Demo 1 Fixed Price Opportunity Line. And the customer budget, as we noted in our lead earlier, is $250,000. And for this line, the billing method is going to be fixed price. So we're going to save. The idea here is that we're going to do a project where we're going to have a fixed bid for the time we spend on the project, and then we will have our second opportunity line, which will be time and materials for expenses and materials consumed on the project. So now this is our Demo 1 T&M opportunity line. The customer budget for this one is $25,000, and this is a time and materials billing method, and we save it. And we go back. Now we can look at the summary tab, and if you look at this, you'll now see, the original budgeted amount. You can see our opportunity total now slightly exceeds that, but that's fine. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, before we can continue processing this, we want to create a quote for, as our next step on this. So we are going to click on the customer account. There it is, Demo 1 customer. And you can see at this point, the account type, the relationship type is blank. So before we can do a quote for it, it needs to be a customer. So we select customer, and you'll notice at this point, a couple of extra field popped up. So we are going to first select a customer group for it. This is required on the finance side, so we're going to say it's a domestic customer. And then we are going to give it a account number, so that can be synchronized as well. And our product price list. This is going to be US bill rates. We were not going to dive into setting up these cost sheets that'll come in a future tech talk, but assume for the moment that this is our correct default billing rates for a project to be executed by this US company. Then we can save this. All right, so now we have a synchronized customer. Now we're going to go back to our opportunity. We've corrected the customer account, and we're going to go to our quotes tab. So we're now ready to move on to creating a quote. So now we go ahead here and we click on new quote. All right. So I'm going to give it a name. It's obviously no longer a lead, so we're going to make it a little bit more friendly and make sure we call it a quote. And let's give it a delivery date. So the requested delivery date for this is going to be the end of May. We go over to, we save this. We look at the customers tab. You will see at the moment that this is now associated with the quote to our demo one customer with 100% of it to be paid by that customer. It would be possible to add a new quote customer and split the billing, but we're not going to follow that path right now. Okay. All right. Now we go to the quote lines tab, and you can see it is already pulled in the opportunity lines. So we, as before, we have a fixed price line for $250,000 and a time and materials line for $25,000. Now we need to refine these a little bit. So let's do that. So we're going to start by opening our fixed price line. Now note, we have a project field here, but it's empty. We're not going to fill that out at this point. If you had already created a project and along with a work breakdown structure and estimates, then you would actually be able to pull it into the quote line details. And those would be honored. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to, manually populate this because we're just going to use a single number as our simple path. Okay, so we're including all project tasks in the project. This is our fixed price, so time will be on a fixed price basis, but we are not going to include any of the expenses, materials, or fees in this particular quote line. Now we go to our quote lines details tab, and we create ourselves a new quote line detail. And this is going to be for our estimated hours. Estimated hours, and it's for time. The role, we could put multiple lines with multiple roles here, but at the moment we're just going to say this is for a consulting lead. And our expected end date for this is May 31st. And we're going to say we're estimating that there's going to be 550 hours here. And we'll save and close that. All right, so you can see there now we have 550 hours at a price from the US bill rates of $450, coming to $247,500. Now we're going to go back. And we're going to similarly look at our time and materials estimate. Okay, and this is sort of the opposite, all project tasks, but this time we're not going to include time, but we are going to include expenses, materials, and fees. Okay, again, we go to our quote line details. We'll add ourselves a new quote line detail. This is going to be for our estimated travel. It's going to be the transaction class will be expense. It's already defaulted that correctly for us. Again, our end date is going to be 5/31. And we're going to say we're going to take 20 flights. And we're guessing they're going to cost us $1,000 each. So we'll save and close that. All right, so there now we have $20,000 worth of flights estimated. Now we go back to our quote. And now you can see if we look at our customer expectations tab, comparison to customer expectations, you can see there, actually we could I ever put a project budget in there? Right, there's our quoted value. Seem to have missed the budget somewhere. Maybe I just save it. Okay, there we go. I just hadn't saved it properly yet. All right, so you can see our customer budget was 275,000 and our quoted value is 267,500. So we're within customer budget, we're within customer budget and within customer expectations for delivery. We can also now look at our profitability analysis. You can see our total chargeable cost for our hours and our expenses for our hours, our expenses are 185,900 at our current estimate, and our total revenue from the fixed price amount of 247,500 and our $20,000 for expenses is 267,500. That would give us a gross margin of 30%. Okay. So now our quote is built, and we're going to go back to our opportunity. So there's our open opportunity. All right. So now what we can do is we can go to the next. We had previously filled out this stuff, and now we can go to our proposed stage. We're just going to say we have identified our sales team, developed a proposal, which we were just doing with our quote. We have completed our internal review, and we are going to present this proposal. All right, and now we can go to our quotes tab, and there we have our new quote. So I can now select this. Open our quote again. And I'm going to close as one. Are we sure? Yes, we are. We have won our business. And while this is processing, as we win this quote, this will automatically create a project contract for us. Just let that finish processing. And you can see it's automatically switched us over to the project contract. So that's going to be our next section. But meanwhile, let's go back to our opportunity. And we're going to close this opportunity as one. you're going to say, okay. And now we have closed that opportunity as one, and you'll see it's now no longer an open. It's now no longer an open project service opportunity, but we would be able to see it if we looked at closed or all project service opportunities. All right, so that gets us to the end of that first part of the demo. All right. Now moving on to the next part of the process, you can see now we're going to look at setting up a project contract, and project planning and milestones. So once again, back to our demonstration. Oops, there we go. All right, so you already saw how that it automatically created the beginnings of our project contract for us. There we have our demo one project contract. But before we go there, we're now going to go and look at projects. So we move to our projects area, select our projects, and we're going to create a new project. Our name is Demo 1 Project. Repeat that in the description. And our customer is our Demo 1 customer. And we'll save this. Okay. Now we'll go to our Tasks tab. And let's start building our work breakdown structure. So I'm going to add a few tasks quickly. Task 1, not very imaginative, I know. Task 2, and task 3. Okay, now I'm going to use another useful feature here is I'm going to add some columns to this view. I'm going to add the start date. I'm going to add effort. I'm going to add our finish date. All right. So now we've got some tasks. We haven't estimated their effort or when we're going to do them or anything like that, but we know who is going to do those tasks. So we're going to click on Assign, and then we will click on the ellipsis, and we're going to add a generic resource for this because we know what kind of resource we're going to need for each of these tasks, but we do not yet know who the specific resource is. We will get to that later. So meanwhile, we will add a generic resource. So the first position we're going to create is a lead. The role is going to be for a consulting lead. And we'll save and close this. So you can see now how it's we now have lead selected as who it's assigned to. We are going to start the beginning of the month. Or actually, let's start at the beginning of the week. And we're going to say this is 160 hours of effort. Oops. What's this to refresh? Let's do that again. Okay. So let's start at the beginning of the week. Try the other way around. Okay. Let's just go ahead and while we're waiting for that to sync, let's just assign this task 2 to our lead as well. And let's add another generic resource on task 3, our PM. We may have a little bug here in the version I'm on, so let's try it from today. Better. All right, let's fix our effort. That's better, 160 hours. 140 hours. And 40 hours. All right, you can see now it's flowed out our estimate there. What I'm also going to do, seeing this project is actually going to go on longer, actually going to change the end date of this one to May 31st. And this, by the way, is the fixed effort scheduling mode. So it should be the same start date and the 240 hours spread out over between March 16th and the end of May. Okay. Now let's go to our timeline view. And let's zoom out a little bit. And let us now link these two tasks together. All right, so there's what our timeline looks like now. All right, so now we can go back to our grid. You'll see that the dates have updated accordingly. All right. And if I look at our resource assignments tab, you'll see how we have 2 tasks for the lead and 1 for the PM. And you can see now how it's spread those hours across the duration of the project. So you can see how we're taking time, and the PM finishes just after the lead, as we saw in our timeline. All right, and if we look at our estimates tab at this point, you can see how we have our estimated cost for the lead of $135,200 for these two chunks of work based on this quantity and the cost rate that's defined in our price lists. And here's the PM. With a bit of mental arithmetic, you can see that the hourly rate is a bit lower there. And it totals up to $164,000 there. We can also look at it by the sales price. You can see there we have $180,000 and $38,400, totaling $218,400. Okay. Now let's have a look at our expense estimates. As well as our expected hours, we're also going to spend some money on travel. So we'll add an expense estimate. Category is going to be flights. Quantity, let's say we're going to take, in the team, we're going to take 25 flights. You can see our unit cost price that got pulled in from our price list is expecting to be $600. So we can save that. So that comes to $15,000. And if we go and look at our summary tab, you can see we now have an estimated labor cost of $164,000 and an estimated expenses cost of $15,000, total estimated cost of $179,000. All right, so we now have a simple project set up. Now let's go back to our project contracts that we automatically created before. And there's our contract. And of course, it's no longer a quote. So just to make it less confusing, let's change the name to contract and save that. All right, now let's go to our contract lines tab. As you can see, the amounts got pulled in from our quote. Remember, 247.5 fixed that we went on, 247.5 fixed price time, and our $20,000 for expenses. And we're going to start by opening the fixed price line. Okay, now at this point, we're going to associate this to our project. Okay, now you'll notice this warning here about the sum of the amount in billing milestones must equal the amount of the contract line. So for that purpose, we go to our invoice schedule, and we're going to say that we bill this at month end, and we're going to start billing from the beginning of March. And then let's go ahead and generate our periodic milestones. You can see how it has now created 3 milestone lines at the end of March, the end of April, and the end of May for 1/3 of the cost each. And obviously you can edit these, but this is the default milestone schedule that's been created. So let's go back. Now let's open our time and materials line. And again, let's associate it with our project. And let's go to the project contract line details. Now this time, remember we talked a little bit earlier about how you can, this is still from our quote, $20,000. But now that we have a project with some estimates, we can now actually import our existing project estimation. Oops, maybe I just didn't save it yet. I'll have to save first. Okay, project. Let's pull that in again. All right, now you can see what's happened here is it's pulled in our estimated 25 flights. But because of the way the prices are set up, I need to correct the price here. Save this. All right, so we have $15,000, 25 $600 flights. We also have an invoice schedule tab here. So again, we can say, let's do month-end invoicing for the T&M part of this, starting on March 1st. And I can generate an invoice schedule. This is not quite the same as the billing milestone schedule, which is required for a fixed price line. For time and materials, you don't have to do this. But what this allows you to do is set up automated invoice creation later. So again, unsurprisingly, you would see that these are our dates for generating our invoices. Okay. When we go back. And let's just go back to our projects quickly now that we have a project contract. We're going to open our project. And I just wanted to point out here on the sales tab now how the project now has the project contract lines associated with it. If we had generated our quote from a project with the project as well, instead of manually populating it, then we would also have a link back to our project quotes there as well. All right, so that concludes that part of the demo. Now we're going to move on to talking about resource scheduling and task assignment in our work breakdown structure. So right back to our demo. Right, so we have our project open. We look at our team tab, and you can see here we have myself as the project manager because I created, but there's no work assigned to me. And then we have the project manager and the consulting lead generic resources. So we're just going to select our generic resource for the consulting lead, and we're going to generate a requirement for this generic resource, because now we want to populate it with a real resource. So we'll generate requirement. And if we scroll to the end there, you can see we've got a resource requirement created. And we are going to submit our request. And we're going to ask for a good lead consultant. Okay, now let's go. Now we're going to be a resource manager persona. So the first thing is let's set up ourselves a resource. Now, obviously, you would normally have your resources already created, but I just want to run through this quickly. So because I don't want to set everything else up, I'm just going to create an equipment resource. There's going to be a demo 1 consulting lead. Time zone is fine. Then we're going to go to our project service tab. We're going to associate this resource role with a consulting lead. Got one little step there. I just need to select company who this resource works for. All right, I'm going to select my demo one consulting lead. I'm going to set calendar for this. That is the working calendar. And just to show you that quickly, that's what gives me, oops, there we go. You can see we now have resource calendar applied. Okay. Now we're going to go to our we're going to go to our resource requests. You can see we have our demo one resource request. And we're going to find resources for it. You can see there our demo one consulting lead is available for this work. So we are going to propose this booking. We're going to book an exit. All right, so we successfully booked 400 of the 400 hours. Now we're going to go back to our request again. And we are going to mark this for review. So now we're going to send it back to the project manager to take a look at. Then the project manager is going to be looking in requirements. And there's our consulting lead requirement. We're going to look at the proposed resources. You can see our demo one consulting lead has been proposed, which looks good to us. So we are going to accept proposals and hard book it. Perfect. Go okay. And then we're going to refresh this. All right, let's go back to our project. If we open our demo one project and we look at the team tab, you will see now how we have the demo one consulting lead there. that has 400 hours of work assigned. And if we look at our, that's our team, we have our resource assignments. You'll see now we have Demo 1 consulting lead on both of these tasks. The PM is still generic. And we look at our resource reconciliation tab. This is where we would see you'd see any booking shortages or excess booking shortages where more work has been assigned and booked, or any excess bookings where more time was booked than work has been assigned. And if we go back and look at our tasks tab, oops, I have to refresh this quickly. Just log me out. See now, because the requirements could be completely fulfilled by the booking, it is automatically assigned the resources. If we weren't able to completely fulfill the requirement, or if it was a more complex way to satisfy it, then you would manually update the assignments from the generic resource to the actual resource. All right, so that concludes our demonstration of the resource scheduling. Now let's move on to project actuals. So this is now where you're executing your project and you are capturing actuals for it. All right, so now let's go. Now we're a team member in the project. So let's go to time entries. I'm going to create a new time entry. And I'm going to choose yesterday for this, just so it's something that I can actually process. 8 hours of work. Project is obviously our Demo 1 project that we've been working with. You can select a specific task, but we're not going to do that in this case. I'm going to say this is for a workshop. I'm going to save and close. All right, and you can see just how, because of how I got my time zone set up, there's my Demo 1 project. This was from previous experimentation. You can see I've got my 8 hours from 3:15. I could go and edit further cells, but I'm just going to keep this simple. I'm going to say that, yes, I've got my 8 hours and I want to submit it. So I select this, I submit it. You can see in this case, I just had the role of project manager. So I'm just going to run with that. Now I'm the project manager looking at approvals. So now I look at time entries for approval. This is obviously the one we just had there for 8 hours. So we go ahead and we approve that. Okay, so now that is approved. Now we got our project again. And let's look at it related actuals. And you'll see here is that we have created a cost actual for the 8 hours of the PM's time at $120, so $960, and it's chargeable. There is not an unbilled sale for this because it's fixed price. In other words, the revenue is coming from our milestones, not from, so we only have the cost side. All right. Now let us get an expense in there. Okay. Let's go to expense. And let's create a new expense report. Let's add a new expense. And this is going to be for a flight for $650, say at the beginning of the week. Okay, now we need to associate this with our project. It is chargeable to the customer. Again, I could select an activity, but I'm not going to bother. And then I'm going to save and continue. Okay, so this is going to be a really simple expense report. So I'm going to go ahead and submit it. All right, so now it's in review. Now I am, say, the PM is going to approve, or the resources manager is going to approve this expense report. And there it is. So you can see it is in review. So I need to trick the workflow a little bit to wait for that workflow to execute to create a work item for the approval. And maybe while we're waiting for that, let's go and use some materials on the project as well. So again, as a project execution, I'm going to create a new material usage line from yesterday for a project widget on our demo 1 project for quantity 1. Save and close that. And then I'm going to submit it. And then, as before with time, except this time I'm going to look at, sorry, not expense entries for approval, for material usage for approval. There's my material usage widget. So I'm going to go ahead and approve that. All right, let's go back and see how our expense report is doing. Okay, so I just need to reassign this to myself so that I can approve it. All right. Now, if I refresh this, I should now be able to approve it. All right, and we just have to wait for that approval to finish. All right, let's go back to our project. And let's look at our actuals again. You'll see now how our material actual, our expense hasn't arrived yet. You can see now how our material actual has been created. We've got a cost for the $19 the widget costs. And because this is the time and materials billing method, we also have an unbilled sale for $22.50. See if our expense report finished. Yep, it's approved. Oh, of course, it wouldn't appear yet because now I finally have to post that expense report. And it's processed for payment. And I'm not going to wait for it right now in the interests of time. But what we would find is that if I refresh this, yeah, there we go. Actually, you can see the flag got pulled in again. It's T&M. So, and we're billing it at cost. So you can see again, you've got a cost and an unbilled sale for the flight. So everything has flowed through. All right. Now we are going to move on to pro forma invoicing of these unbilled sales and milestones. Okay. So now at this point, we have to go back to our budget contract. And we're going to go to our contract lines, and we're going to open our fixed price line. And then we're going to go to our invoice schedule. And we're going to say that this first line is now ready for invoicing. So we go and make that ready for invoicing, save and close. Right, so now that invoice, that milestone can be billed. Now let's also go to our time and materials billing backlog. So this is where we can say, and we're going to make this a little bit easier for ourselves by searching by project. And you can see, as you would expect, we have those two unbilled sales for the flight and for the widget. And we're going to say that these are ready to invoice. All right, and if we go there and look at the status, they're now ready to invoice. So all right, now we can go to our project contracts. And again, this could be automated, the billing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to create a project invoice for this project contract that we've been working with. And then we're going to go OK. Now we go to invoice this. Let's wait for this invoice to be created. All right, there's our demo one invoice. Okay, and you can see there we've got our contract line amounts. As you'll remember from the contract, the amount previously billed, which in this case is none. What we're billing this time, so the milestone for 82.5 and 672 for the widget and the flight. And you can see if I now go, if I look at these, if I open the T&M line, you can see there you can do editing to make things non-chargeable or complimentary or whatever, but we're just going to go with a happy path here. You can see here how we've got the flight and the widget. And let's look at the fixed price project. And you can see here how we've got the build milestone. Okay, so this all looks good. So we're going to confirm this invoice. All right, now let's just go back to the projects quickly and take a quick peek at the actuals again. I just wanted to point out here that what has happened here is that you can see that the unbilled sale has been reversed and a billed sale has been created for each of these lines. And then also your milestone is billed here as well. Okay. All right. All right, so now we are at a piece of this where we're going to account for it in finance and operations. So let's flip over to finance and operations. So the first thing we do here is we run a process. This is typically set up in batch to just run periodically, but I want to do it now. So I'm going to import from staging here and just run it manually. And essentially what this does is pull in the actuals from the engagement app. And now if I go and look at my project operations integration journal, you can see here how I've got a couple of not posted lines here. And remember, if this one is from, there's my demo one project flight. And you can see there how we, again, the cost of 650 and the unbilled sale of 650 have come through. Should have looked at the other lines. So that was the expense. I don't think I put it my item consumptions on that one yet. Okay, let's look at the next one. And there's my hour. Just the cost again, because remember it's fixed price. That's my cost. No expenses. So it wasn't on the same date. You can see the item in this case was on the same date. So there's my project widget. Again, the cost and the unbilled sale. I think this one must be somebody else's. Yeah, that one is not mine. That one is not mine. So now let's select these two. Let's go ahead and post this. And then let's post this. Those were the two journals of interest to us. Okay, so those are posted. Now, if I go look at all my projects, see there, if I look at my demo one project, and see there, if I look at pending transactions, you can see how I have the milestones are pending. If I look at posted transactions, you can see there how I have the cost and unbilled sale from my flight expense and the cost and the unbilled sale from my project widget and the cost from my hour. So the subledger has been updated with my costs so far and my unbilled sales. All right. Similarly, you'll remember how we already created our pro forma invoice on the customer engagement side. So now that these journals are posted, I can import from staging again. Again, this would typically be automatic. And this should populate my invoice proposal for me. There's my invoice proposal. As you can see there, if I open it up, you'll see there's my on-account milestone to be built. There's my widget. And there's my flight expense. So I can go ahead and post that. All right, that gets us to the end of that part of it. And in fact, now again, if I went back and looked at the projects, you would see that, of course, that milestone has been posted as well. All right, now let's go to the final piece of this, which is our revenue recognition. Again, this is going to be very simplified, but let's go to all projects. Our demo one project. First thing I just want to show you is that in the process of creating those, of assigning our resources and estimating our expenses, you can see there, it's a little bit easier to see if I just sort by transaction type. You can see our expense estimate comes through as a forecast, and that the hours on our tasks come through as forecast lines. So we have a forecast in order for us to be able to estimate what percentage of the work has been done at this point. All right, so now we can go to estimates process. I'm going to create a new estimate. I'm going to say the estimate is for the end of this period. Cost to complete method and completion method from the cost template. I'm going to select our forecast model. I'm going to say OK. All right, and you can see here how it is estimated. Obviously, we've only done a tiny amount of work at this point on the total contract value, and that equates to that we have completed 0.59% of the project. Obviously, you wouldn't typically be doing revenue recognition quite that quickly, and then that means, therefore, that we can accrue $1,448.78 in revenue. So then we can go ahead and we can post our estimate, and that will do the accounting for our revenue recognition. And that is the last of our demos. So just in closing, we just wanted to provide some resources for you with useful links. You can plug into the community on customer and partner source, and there's various blogs and docs articles that we've linked to. So we have a few pages of resources. I'm not going to read through them all here. You'll be able to see these on the recording and in the PDF of the deck we will make available. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd like your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and audience for joining us today.